Hello everybody. We are back with more modern black-white tokens actual gameplay videos. Um, Modern Horizons came out last weekend, and we've got a whole list of cards that we're trying to test out. So um, figured we got to get cracking on these. So first off, for today, we're going to be testing out Battle Screech, which was a card that I was looking forward to having in this set, just because it's just another tool that we can use. It makes tokens. It's not quite the power level that we would want and hope for, but it's just another card that our deck can use. So I was excited to test it out, and it's a card that I played a good amount when I was a kid. Obviously, it's a well-known popper card and whatnot, but it's just a card that I was excited to test out and play. So we kind of built our deck around really trying to take advantage of the Battle Screech. I obviously could have gone way overboard, but I was trying to keep this deck to what it usually is and should be. I think I talked about this a little bit, either in the chat groups or on our set review with my buddy K-Ponce. But I think Battle Screech, if you really wanted to push and take advantage of it, may even be more well suited in like a white aggressive type shell, with like Honor the Pure as an addition to Intangible Virtues, and more aggro, and maybe second in this deck. And I'm going to go full disclaimer here and say that I don't know that this card is actually going to be the card you want in the best versions of this deck. And certainly not a card I'm going to go ahead and guess that we are going to want four of. I think it's, for the as powerful of an effect as it is, that's not the improvements our deck was trying to have. So I think running four is just a little bit too much, but we are doing two things with these videos. One, I just want to see this card as much as we can, so I'm playing four of it. And two, the whole point is to test this card and have a deck that black-white tokens deck that revolves around this card. So this is the starting point. What kind of changes did we make? Well, obviously, cut history finale. I think that's going to be something I'm going to be doing in the future anyway. We'll get to that in a minute. But we want to try to take advantage of this flashback, right? That's the big kicker here. Obviously, if you already have creatures on the board, right, the whole joke with Battle Screech is you only need one white creature. Then you play this, you get two more, you tap the one you had before, and then the two you just cast, and you get three more, or two more, sorry. So you end up with 4 tokens for 4 mana, which is fantastic. You do have to have that one more, and you are committing everything to the board, which is kind of what Spectral Procession does, right? You are committing all the tokens to the board, but it's very, very strong, and it's 3 to 4 mana for 3 tokens, which is great. Battle Screech is a conditional 4, at the very least a 2, and it does have that upside of being able to go 2+2, which is something that I value a lot, and that's part of what draws me to this card, is being able to play 2 of them, 2 tokens, play the front side. Much like Lingering Souls, then just kind of let it sit in your graveyard. If you're worried about sweepers, if you're not worried about sweepers, obviously you just go to town and play all 4 tokens, and that's fantastic. It's a much faster clock. But if you are worried about sweepers, being able to go to leave the other half in your graveyard and then save it for later, much like we do with Lingering Souls. Now, obviously, the flashback is significantly more difficult to do than just paying the 2 mana. It's conditional. That's the word I was looking for. Especially if you're playing against a deck with sweepers, you're not going to have many creatures on the battlefield to flash it back. So it's kind of at pull with itself there. But it is something where if you have an Oriarch champion either out that's survived the sweeper, or you play later, or you have a Legion's Landing token out, or even if you flipped a Legion's Landing, you can, end of their turn, make a token with your Adanto, and then what works really well is having one of each, right? 1 Lingering Souls and 1 Battle Screech in the graveyard. then all you need is your kind of flipped Adanto token or a Legion token or an Auriok champion, or even a Gideon token. You just need any of the ones, and then you flash back Souls and Battle Screech, and then boom, you go from just having like the one creature to 5, and that's fantastic. So that's obviously the top end there, and it's kind of, it's not too much living the dream, right? So that's what I wanted to get into next, and that's what I did to build this deck. I obviously only 2 Auriok champions, but it serves that purpose. But I did go back to Legion's Landing, which is not a card I've played in these decks in probably close to 2 years. But it is a card that seems to make sense with Battle Screech. So it's just a cheap way to get 1 token out, and then you can flash all these back if you need to. As well as just the Adanto, right? Not just the front side, but the back side of this. Making tokens later on in the game can help a lot with the Battle Screech. So that's what I'm going here. Kept the same package. I like my usual 12 1-drop interaction spells. Obviously 4 Virtues. Went down to 2 Bitter Blossoms just because we do have more threats in the Battle Screeches and the Spectrals. And the Bitter Blossom tokens are black, obviously, so they don't help for Battle Screech. Souls, all these other token makers. Because we were so high on 4 mana spells, I actually cut down on Gideons and Sorens. Maybe it would have been correct to just like cut the Spectrals, or like cut 1 Spectral and play another Soren, or cut 2 Spectrals, but Soren doesn't make white tokens, they're black vampire creature tokens, so I wanted to have more ways of being able, allowing us to flash back the Battle Screech, and obviously Spectral Possession just lets you flashback the Battle Screech on its own, so that's pretty cool. Then the last card we have in here is Generous Gift. This is one of the other cards from Modern Horizons that needs some testing, that I think is going to be a really valuable addition to our deck. I threw it in here just because this isn't a card that I'm going to be like making a whole video series about testing. Like, I'm not going to be running 4 of these in a deck and testing it out. It's a card you just want 1 or 2 of, maybe more, I guess. But it's more of a it's an assistance card or a supplemental card rather than like a primary deck card like the Battle Screech that we'll test out, and some other cards that we can test out of Modern Horizons. So throwing 1 in here and then 1 on the sideboard, just so we can test that a little bit more. Sideboard, kind of normal disenchant effects, Rest in Peace, all the Stonies, 3rd Auriok. The Gift Settle as the sweeper of choice, especially with all the Battle Screechers and having more creatures out. I don't really want, or we're trying to keep creatures out. I don't really want Wrath or Damnation. Surgical Extirpates, just one Brutality sideboard. I like having 2 in the 75, and I only had space for 1 in the main deck, so that was really the only consideration there. And then Damping Sphere is actually a card I've been growing on me a little bit more. Just treating Tron and Amulet, it's pretty strong, and even like Storm and Phoenix, kind of taxing their mana a whole lot is pretty useful. So I've kind of upped this to 2. The other thing I added that's new from Modern Horizons, I almost forgot, was Silent Clearing. This is also a fantastic addition to our deck. Just having another utility land that does actually tap for black and white right off the bat, even if it's painful, is very useful. So I'm starting with 2. I don't know what the correct number is. A lot of people have been arguing anywhere from 1 to 4-ish, even 0 to 4, just trying not to take too much damage from their lands. But I think, I think we can afford to do more. I might even up it to 4 at some point. Just kind of figure out what we want to be cutting. If you want to be cutting the fetch land package, which is tough against Blood Moon because you want to have those basics out, or if we're cutting like Concealed Courtyards, which I don't like either, or obviously even just like utility lands like Field of Ruin, maybe this is just better, like the utility of Jai card is better than what the Field of Ruins do. I don't think so, because I think these have a very strong effect in a lot of the metagame right now, but figuring out what we want to do with Silent Clearing is the next best bet. So that's the deck. I will be playing in some matches shortly, but for those of you who have asked, this is kind of the I'm not going to say tier 1 or whatever you want to call it. This is if I were to go into a competitive modern tournament this weekend, what I would play would be something like this. I haven't done any testing with it yet, but this is just kind of what I'm thinking based on what I've seen from the cards in this format, and what the format's going to end up being with the addition of these new cards. So most notably here is Kaya's Guile. This is a card that I'll be doing a whole video series about. I'm going to try to run at least 3, maybe even 4 in our deck and see if we can maximize the Guile. I think that's going to be an interesting series there. Doing one generous gift. I thought I had one in the sideboard. I should probably have one in the sideboard. 2 clearings again, and kind of kept the lands the same. And then the other thing I'm doing differently, obviously, so 4 Bitter Blossoms. Part of what I think Kaya's Guile wants us to do is to have more early drops, so we can leave open the 3 mana. So whether it's Bitter Blossom or Auriok Champion. Did go up to 3 Auriok Champions and one of the sideboards of the full 4, because Dredge, I think, is going to be continuing to be popular, and then we've got these new Bridgevine decks that are getting popular with Hogak. I don't know if the Auriok Champion's enough. I'm just considering it kind of a dredgy type deck, so I'm thinking Auriok Champion's going to be in there. So this is what I would take to a big tournament this weekend if I were playing, but not relevant now. Battle Screech is where it's at right now. The last thing I want to mention in this deck tech is that I will be actually doing some streaming this weekend. I have an opportunity to do that. So I'm going to be posting this video the morning of Thursday, July 14th. And I will be streaming tonight, Thursday, July 14th, probably around 10 p.m. Pacific time till about 1 a.m. or so. And it may also be... I will also be streaming Friday night the next day. Thursday, June 13th is when I'm posting this now and where I'll be streaming. Friday, June 14th, I'll be streaming that night as well. Probably a little earlier, probably around, let's say 8 or 9 p.m. Pacific time. I may even get a stream in Friday during the day, midday around noon to 2 p.m. on Pacific time. So for those of you interested, I'll be definitely streaming tokens, and I'm going to be streaming Modern Horizons draft as well. It's on Twitch, the Ivanhoe, same name as this channel. So for those of you interested, please jump on. All right, that's enough talking for now. Let's get to some matches with Battle Screech.